In this episode of The Nerd Is In, I want to take advantage of the fact that we're writing programs for C Sharp with a graphical user interface. So we should put pictures in there and learn how to manipulate them and make them look nice and add them to our project and make sure we're not violating copyright laws. So I'm going to show you all this in this video.
So far, we have created a Hello World project and we've inputted a string from a text box, turned it into a number, done a little bit of math, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but we're writing programs for a graphical user interface, Windows, and we haven't done anything to make it look graphical. So in this example, I want to show you how to add pictures and some of the properties and manipulations you may need to do with them in your project. So I've got some pictures here that I have downloaded, or in this case, that's my splash screen picture. But how do you get pictures that don't violate copyright? So I just want to take a minute and talk about that. I'm in google.com. I did a search for "don't panic," and this is the pictures that came up under images. Now, these can be copyrighted, non-copyrighted, exact, all different choices here. So what I want to do is go to Settings, Advanced Search, scroll down here and Usage Rights, and I'm going to say Free to Use, Share or Modify, even commercially. And then I'm going to hit Advanced Search. So now you're seeing some of those pictures have gone away. So this is one of the ones I downloaded. This is one of the ones I downloaded. If I click on this one and bring it up in another tab, sometimes these websites try to make it hard for you to download them. What I found helps a lot is usually if you right click on it and say View Image, now I've got the image, now I can right click on it and save image as, and you see it's going to be saving it as a PNG. Now I've already downloaded this one right here. That's also how I got the down arrow and the up arrow. So that's how you get your pictures. That's one of the ways to get your pictures, okay? Now, if you see, I've already downloaded those two pictures from Google Images. Oh, this one and this one. This one's copyrighted, so I don't want that to be in my finished project. I've already launched my project, but to launch your project, you double click on the Visual Studio solution. That's the easiest way. And I've already done that. Let me call the project up and we can look at it right here. We can see I've got a picture on my button. I've got a picture in this picture box, and I'm actually going to put a picture on the background of the form. So this is a background image, this is the image property, but let's change this picture out. Let's add it to my project. So if I click on the picture box and I go down to my image property and hit ... I'm going to say import. Let me grab this one. Let's grab this one first and say open, and then I'm going to say OK. So now it's made this the current image in my picture box. And over here in my Solution Explorer, if I open up Resources, you can now see I've got Don't Panic right here. That's this picture. Okay, I just added. Now, I want to add the other picture. Every time you add a picture, it adds it to your resources. And the one you add last is the one that will be in your picture box image property. Now I'm going to hit open and say OK. So there's my image, okay? Now, let me pause here just for 1 sec. So I had to resize my form a little bit. It had gotten a little off size. So now you can see I've got these 3 buttons down here, which I'll explain in the code window. I've got a color group box that lets me I've got a group box called Color Group Box that I've got 2 radio buttons in, and I've got my display button. If I run the program, I'll come up here to Start and drag the program onto the screen so you can see it. If I resize the program right now, let me grab this right here. You'll notice how the color box and the 3 buttons float with it, and also the project can't get any smaller than a certain size. So I'll talk about that. If I maximize, these buttons in this group box down here are locked at the bottom. Okay, they're anchored at the bottom. So I'm going to end my program. Here's my Visual Studio. I've added my pictures, and let me show you a little bit more functionality here. I'm going to start the program again. So let's get the label out of the way first. So I'm going to say Bubba in the text box and hit display. It says hello Bubba. Now you notice when I mouse down, I change the picture in the background of the command button, of the button. When I do a mouse up, it goes back to the original picture. So all I'm doing is on the mouse down event and on the mouse up event, I'm changing the property, the background image. Now, if I click on the red radio button, it changes the foreground color of the label to red. And if I click on the blue radio button, it changes it to blue. So that's basically what this stuff does here. The only thing I'm throwing into the label here is the radio buttons. So I'm going to stop my program. And if I double click on the red radio button, it's called RAD for radio, red. And in the RAD red check changed event, that's the event that gets triggered when you click on a radio button and make it the active selected radio button. I'm saying label display, which is the name of my label, dot for color equals color.red. So in the blue radio button, you can guess what I do. I do the same thing, except I say color blue. So that's all there is to setting your color, your foreground color. There's also your background color. That's a different property. And if I come in here, when I type color dot, that brings up a collection of colors. So they have a lot of canned colors in here. That's the easiest way to set your color. So let's see. This is my blue button. So it's capital B-L-U-E. Oops. There we go. And that's how I'm changing the color of the radio button. So nothing special there. Let's see, what do we have here? We had Bubba display, and I'm changing the colors. So that's how you do that with the radio buttons. Now, let's talk about the behavior on this button and how I did this. So, well, first of all, if you look in my resources, I had imported the down arrow and the up arrow, and if you click on the button, you'll notice that I had set the background image. I'd hit the dot 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 button, pick the background image, up arrow, and then right below it I said background image layout stretch. Now if you don't do this, like if I just set it to tile, it leaves the image its original size. It doesn't make it fit in the button, and of course that arrow will not fit in the button. If I come over here to background image layout and choose stretch, it makes the button, the image fit inside the button. Okay, so you want background image layout set to stretch. Now on your picture box, you want to do the same thing. If I click on this picture box and I go to the image property, I pick the image, but on the picture box, it's called size mode, and I want stretch image. Now, if I just leave it normal, oops, not normal, let's just say I want it to be center image or auto size. It's not going to make the picture correct. Now, also, if you have a picture that is, the other thing with stretch image, you see how it can distort it depending on the aspect ratio, so you got to watch out for that. But generally, I set my size mode to stretch image. If you have a picture that's much larger than the picture box, here, let me do that. let's switch to Don't Panic 1024, and I change the size mode to normal. You see how the picture doesn't fit in here anymore? It's getting clipped. So that's what I was trying to show you before, but the picture I had was not big enough. Now, like I said, this is copyrighted, so I don't remember where I got this picture. I got it like 15 years ago, but I'm going to hit ... here, and I'm going to just go back to Don't Panic. There we go. No, not that Don't Panic. We want this Don't Panic. There we go. So now I've got my image in there the way I want it. Now, on this behavior, the other thing that you want to worry about to make your picture size according to the size of your window, a couple things you want to do. Well, first of all, on your form, you want to go to your minimum size property and set the minimum size of your form. And what I've done is just set it pretty much to the minimum, to my current size, okay? But that way the user cannot resize the window smaller than your controls, smaller than it will fit. Now I don't have a maximum size, so they can go all the way to full screen size. If I run the program, hit my start button, and I maximize, everything got bigger. These float on the bottom of the window, and this is not resizing. This picture box right here is not resizing. I'm going to end the program, and the way I'm doing that is if you click on one of these buttons and you go to the anchor property, I'm saying anchor this button to the bottom and the right of the screen, of this window, not the screen, of the window. So when I resize the window, this button will always stay the same distance from the right side and the bottom side. So I did the same thing here. I set the anchor property to bottom right, bottom right. This one right here, this group box, I set it to bottom left. I want it to stay the same distance from the bottom and the left edge. Now, by default, a control is anchored to top left. So when you resize, the control doesn't move at all. So that's what I have on this picture box right here. If I look at its anchor property, it's top left. If I change it to all four, if I turn in all four, as the window gets bigger, the picture box will get bigger. And I don't have to write a bunch of code to make that happen. So let's start the program again and maximize. See how my picture got bigger? Minimize. I'll grab it by the corner here. That's as small as I can go because my minimum size. But you see the picture is resizing dynamically. So it's as easy as that. It's as easy as setting the anchor property. Now, if you want to do it in your code, you can look at this lock pick button. Let's open up this button right here. Lock the picture. So on this one, I said pick, don't panic. That's the name of my picture. Dot anchor equals. And here I had to do a little bit of weirdness with the code. I had to say equal anchor styles dot top vertical bar, anchor styles dot bottom vertical bar, anchor styles dot right, anchor styles dot left. That's a tongue twister. You try to say that 4 times fast. I challenge you. Really, I do. I challenge you. So this vertical bar right here is the bitwise OR. So I'm saying anchor style top or anchor style bottom or anchor style right or anchor style left. That basically means put all 4 of these together. Turn on all 4 of those attributes for the anchor property. And the way it does it is it's a number, and each one of these has a value. That has a value of 1, that has a value of 2, 8, 4. So each one of these is a different bit. It's 1, 2, 4, 8. And I'm turning all 4 of these on to anchor it to all 4 directions. That's how you could do it in your code. Now, let me run through a few more of these buttons. Like I could lock the picture in place. I can hide the picture, I can show the picture. I made this button do both. Turns out that's real easy. And then I'm going to display the background. So let me maximize my window, and then I'll hit display background. So the background of the form now says the nerd is in. And if I say hide show picture, that shows up in front of it. All the controls are floating on top of the background. So that's what the display button does. I'm going to close my program. Let's go back to hide show pick. Let me show you how this button works. And it turns out I'm using the not operator. So the property that I'm setting to make the picture box disappear is visible. And visible can be true or false. So right here, instead of doing this, I could say true. Okay? And that would make the picture visible. Or if I want the picture to disappear, I could say false. Okay? But since I want to do both, this is how I did it. So all your controls are visible, are set to true to start with. So if I say not pick don't panic visible, if I say not true, well, what's not true? It's false. So it's going to put a false into visible. Now the next time I click on the button, if I say not false, it becomes true. So that just creates what we call a toggle. So now you can see every time I hit on the button, click on the button, the picture appears and disappears. Now, to look at the background, the display background, let's see how I do that. This is accessing the stuff in my resources. Okay, now when you say this, you are referring to the current object, which is the form. That's my form. And I'm saying this dot background image equals. Now to access my resources, which is these pictures over here, okay, I say properties dot resources and upper and lowercase matters, and then as soon as you hit this dot right here, it's going to give you a list of choices. So let me erase that, and y'all can ridicule my typing abilities. Properties dot capital R resources. Now as soon as I hit dot right here, you see how it's giving me a list of all the resources in this project. Here are my pictures. I could say the nerd is in. I could say down arrow. Here, let's do down arrow, okay? I'll run the program. Oops, I got a typo. I forgot my semicolon. So now that I got my semicolon on the end there, let's run my program. So now when I say display background, you'll see it is displaying that big down arrow, okay? So that's how you put the pictures in your code. Now, once again, I don't want the down arrow right here. I want the nerd. So dot, the nerd is in, semicolon, because all C# lines have to end with a semicolon. Now, if you want to get rid of a background or an image, you can say equals null. So if at design time, for instance, like if I click on the form right here, and I go to my background image property, you see right now it says none. But let's start it out with the up arrow. What the heck? So now I've got that up arrow on the background, okay? If I run the program, there's nothing showing in the form, because if we look at my code window, on form pictures load, actually form pictures is my window. That's my form pictures. That's my window. On the load event, which is when the program starts, I'm setting the background image to null, to blank it out. So it starts with nothing. And you could do that like right here. Button display background image equals, and I could say null, and I would have no image on it. So like for instance on mouse up, All right, so when we go to mouse up, I'm going to set my background image to null, semicolon. Going to run the program again. Let me grab it. It's on the other screen. So now down, nothing, down, nothing, down, nothing. Of course, I do want the up arrow when we have the mouse up event, okay? So if I put that back, I just hit the undo button here. I just used Control Z to undo. I want the up arrow on the mouse up event. Now, how do you add these events? Ooh, that's ugly. Let me get rid of that arrow on the background here. I've clicked on my form. Let me go to my background image property and set it to none. Oh, that's better. How did I add these new events to my code window? Okay, so that's one thing I do need to show you. So over here, right now, I'm looking at all the properties of button display. You see the lightning bolt? That's the events. So when I click on events, this is all the different events I can have for that button. So you can see drag over as an event. You can see key down as an event, key press as an event, key up as an event. And what I did was I set an event for mouse down and mouse up. Okay, so let's do a mouse hover. I'm gonna double click on this, and here's a mouse hover. And let me go up here and grab my line of code. I'm going to copy this. And here is my mouse hover, except let's not do an up arrow. Let's do dot. There we go. Let's do this, don't panic. So that's if I hover the mouse over it. And once again, don't forget you got to have a semicolon. So now I should have a hover event. Let me do my favorite button, save all. So now I'm ready to start my program. Bring it back on the screen. It's got the up arrow. If I hold my mouse over it, that's the hover event. Click, it goes down. Mouse up, it goes back to arrow. If I leave my mouse, it says don't panic. Isn't that wonderful? So now you can get an idea of how we can play with pictures. We can put them on our form by setting the anchor property to make it resize. Don't forget that the important property for the image control for the picture box is setting your, by the way, I'm still on my events. I want to go back to properties. So now I'm back on properties. This is the properties button. This is the events button. So I'm back on properties, and I'm going to go to my image property to pick the picture that shows up in the picture box, but to make it size correctly, it's size mode. Now for the form, you want to set your background. You want to set your background image. So I could come in here and say I want it to be the nerd is in. And then you want background image layout to be stretch. So just wanted you to have some fun with pictures here, just to get an idea, so we can make our programs a little bit more colorful and not just bland as we're learning to program. So come in here, bring my wonderful project on the screen, hide it, and say the nerd is in. So if you've enjoyed this and you want to see future videos, please like and subscribe. Now really, I want you to try to say that sentence about the anchor properties 4 times fast. Bye-bye.